Welcome, everybody. This is DNN. Well, what do we call this thing? Southern Fried
Southern Fried DNN.
Ryan Moore, why do we call it Southern Fried DNN?
All right, we got two good solid things here. History of our user group is that we were the Queen City DNN user group originally, and we had QC Doug as our moniker. And so we had QC Doug logo. I don't know if we had QC Doug t-shirts, but we were the Queen City. And when we decided to host an event, there had been a couple of DNN user conventions, and then there was a lull and there wasn't really much going on. And at that point, this is 2013 or 2014, we decided that we would put on one here in the Charlotte area. And we named that event Southern Fried DNN. Clint Patterson, David Poindexter, and myself, Ryan Moore, we all had a part in creating that Southern Fried DNN event, and it was a great success. We had users come from all over down to the Charlotte area, and we had a day event.
And let's not forget our beloved Alan Foster.
Alan Foster was really 100%. You're right. Big part of that. And so that too was one of the first events where we made a day of training part of the event. And that wasn't always the case before that. So we then had a second event, and what we were going to call that? We decided to also call it Southern Fried DNN. So we had a second event, and it was even better and more fun than the first one. And afterwards, the very next thing was DNN Con that happened in West Palm Beach. So lo and behold, the end of that year, we lost and missed the registration on QC Doug. It expired on us, and it was picked up by a dentist and a dental company for which QC DUG somehow had acronym meaning for this dental company. So we lost QC Doug. I told everyone at the time that we were in the wonderful, similar auspices of other corporations like Microsoft, who temporarily for a short period of time lost their domain name to someone else who picked it up and bought it. However, at the time we said, I believe at a Christmas party, what should we do? Should we try and get QC Doug back? Should we rename ourselves? And the idea was floated. We like Southern Fried DNN. Why don't we just call our group Southern Fried DNN? And with some Christmas cheer and libations going, that was a hearty yes on the vote. So that is why we are the Southern Fried DNN user group. We took the name for the domain and the event we already had, and it became our user group. That said, we are often specific to mention to everyone that this is your user group. Regardless if you are in the south of the United States or not, Southern Fried DNN user group has been going for quite a long time. I could look at some stats. We might be the longest running, continuously active DNN user group. We certainly are one of the remaining continuously active DNN user groups. So in events like this, we have people all over the world joining us, and you're all part of our fold. And if we have some events where we've got Southern Fried t-shirts and stickers and things to send out, every one of you should get one because you're all Southern Fried.
Wow, Ryan, I appreciate the detailed response. That's a great history lesson because it was it was quite the panic in the real time of that, right? We were like, oh my gosh, we lost the domain. What do we do? So it was actually kind of a fun thing that came out of that and has really stuck and been a good thing. So thanks for everybody joining. This is our September edition of the Southern Fried DNN Meetup. And we're honored today to have a couple of great presenters that we really haven't heard from in a while. Probably, let's see, Jay, I think Mathis spoke at a DNN Summit not too long ago. And Timo, I know probably the last presentation you probably did was a DNN Connect, right? So it's good to have these guys here tonight, and you can see that we're a bit theming on some structured content tonight. So it'll be really fun for those of you that know structured content. I'm sure you'll pick up some nice tips of things to do and maybe even not to do, right, Timo? And we'll also, for those of you that aren't familiar with structured content, and this will be a good introduction for some of the possibilities that exist out there. So thanks for joining. Before we get heading into announcements here, just wanted to thank our sponsor of manage.com, who is the hosting provider for the Southern Fried DNN.com. So thank you guys for doing that. We really appreciate this. It's one of those things we kind of take for granted sometimes that yeah, they do host our site. It's been there for so long. We kind of forget that, oh yeah, they are giving us that. So thank you for doing that. For those of you that don't know about manage.com, you can go to manage.com and check out more about their services. They provide really great solutions when it comes to managing DNN websites. So they're not just a typical hosting provider. They can give you some expertise as it relates to DNN as well. So it's not just talking to somebody that knows a server but doesn't know the application. So be sure to check them out. Ryan, did I miss anybody specifically? I know we use Mandeep modules. I think I mentioned him last month, but beyond that, I think we use his for the blogging solution out here, right? And the theme. Thank you, mandeeps.com, for providing that. Did I miss any there? You're muted. We'll assume that that's a no.
Modules wise, we also have Xmon Pro throughout the site in different sections. And so Kelly Ford and the team at Know Better and Xmon Pro are also ones we rely on for things that we do in the site.
Excellent. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you to all the sponsors for your generosity in helping keep things afloat here in Southern Fried DNN. So I wanted to highlight a few areas where you might not know about that you can keep in touch with Southern Fried DNN. One is the website here, which I have on the screen, is southernfrieddnn.com. Ryan and his team do a great job at trying to procure and show all the videos from various events, not just Southern Fried DNN events, but also other events from conferences and training videos. And you even added DNN Dave. Wow, look at that. That's kind of cool. I didn't notice that until just now. So,
absolutely.
Thanks for doing that. And then, of course, the blog is usually a recap of each of the meetups that we do. We are a little bit behind right now, just due to the busyness of everybody, but I'm sure it'll get caught up at some point. So be sure to check that out. You can also go to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/southernfrieddnn. We'll take you to the channel. And then from there, you can look at the videos and you can see we've got quite the history of videos back here. So, a lot of these, even though they're quite old and old meetups that we had, the content is still relevant today. So be sure to check out that great resource there.
100% too. If you're looking for some older history and you want to find out how, for instance, DNN is like an octopus, you're going to be able to find that in some of the videos that we reference there.
Fantastic. We're on Twitter out here at SoFriedDNN, so be sure to follow us there, especially to get information on upcoming meetups and various things going on in the community. And beyond Southern Fried DNN, many of you know about this, but for some of you that may not, there's a great Slack channel on, if you're familiar with Slack, at openhelp.slack.com. And I could probably bring it over on my screen fairly quickly here just to show if I could drag this. So out here on Slack, there's a great workspace out here with various channels
it's not
that are dedicated
on 11 o'clock anyway, so that's what it used to be when you were here.
Okay, I'll mute that. I think that's somebody calling in on the phone. So yeah, out here you got various channels for various aspects of the community, and those will change from time to time and grow and so forth. But I think right now there's 230 members of this. It's a great environment to just kind of extend the community a bit and keep the dialogue going. So it's very helpful for quick announcements and quick questions that you might would have. There's usually somebody online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be able to help with anything that you might need. They may need some help with a certain module or how to administer something in DNN. It's just a great way to do it. One of the drawbacks to this workspace, though, is that this is not publicly, easily accessible and searchable. And we're on a free account here. So there's only so many messages and so many assets that could be shared in here without it starting to fall off and not be discoverable anymore. So I bring that up because occasionally there will be such great answers to questions in here that we try to encourage people to blog on the dnncommunity.org. And here's a great example of something that recently happened in Slack, where our friend Aaron Lopez gave such an eloquent response to the question about structured content. And this is relevant to today's meetup. So I felt like it was a good one to point out. And he took basically his answers in there, reformatted it just a little bit and posted it out as a blog entry for everybody to be able to discover. So it'll be nice and evergreen out there for people to be able to find it. So I say this also to encourage you that if you do see such great responses from time to time in that Slack workspace, be sure to encourage whoever posted it to be able to blog that out on the dnncommunity.org site or some other relevant DNN site. And if you don't have permissions to be able to blog on the site, that can be fixed quite easily. So feel free to just request, and I'm sure somebody watching in that channel will be able to connect you with the right people to be able to give you that access. I think we've done that with a number of people that have expressed interest in being able to blog out here. So at the dnncommunity.org site, I didn't see any other recent blogs that were within the last month here, but are there any particular announcements in the community beyond, that I may be missing off of the site, like any forum posts that were especially interesting or relevant out here that anybody has that wanted to bring up? While you're thinking about that, I will mention that the latest release of DNN is 9.10.1. I think we're probably, and Daniel, I know you're driving, Daniel Velas, but I think we're planning on potentially a new release candidate early next week, right? For DNN 9.10.2, I believe. If my memory serves me correctly. Okay, we got an okay sign from him. So be sure to check out here on github.com/DNN software/DNN.platform. And on the releases tab, you'll be able to see the latest releases and get those. I will also point out that, until we get to the version that forces the removal of Telric, Telric is optionally able to be removed, and the documentation for that has been linked in each of the relevant releases of DNN recently, starting with 9.8.0. But the documentation now lives on dnndocs.com. So feel free to come out here and take a look at the instructions here for removal of Telric. I also mentioned this is a great resource as well for other documentation related to DNN docs. We're in the process of trying to fix a few glitches as it relates to this entire project, by the way, is open source as well on GitHub. We welcome any contributions to that, and any page that you see that needs to be changed, you can click on the improve this doc, either submit a pull request yourself or just provide feedback, which will start an issue on github.com to be able to update the documentation to address any needs that are there. We're experiencing one small issue now with the build process of this project that if you are making contributions right now, they're being processed on GitHub, but they're not being reflected on the website right now because there is a build issue there. We're looking to rectify that as soon as possible. But in a normal scenario, whenever those contributions are made, the build process is very quick and usually automatically published to the website. We'll get back to that state here in the hopefully foreseeable future here. So just wanted to make a note of that. I was going to highlight as well. I saw Ernst Peter join us here, and he may wanted to mention this. Correct me if I say anything wrong here, Ernst Peter, but you guys have been working on the latest Dutch language pack for DNN. And is there anything in particular that you would like to highlight about that? If not, just know that that is now available. I think the latest release of that was for 9.10.0. And I think they're working now on the 9.10.1 release of that. So it's good to see the activity on these language packs going on out here. So thank you, Ernst Peter and your team for helping to keep that language pack up to date. Have I missed anything announcement wise that makes sense other than I was going to mention DNN Summit? Anything else anybody wants to bring up or announce? With that, we'll talk about DNN Summit, which is coming up in February of 2022. That's February the 9th and the 10th. It is going to be a virtual conference, just like it was the previous year, delivered through the Hopin platform. But there is a potential of an in-person aspect to this, not the actual conference itself, but some social events that are tied into the timing of this in Las Vegas, there at the MGM studio. So, I mean, not studio.
MGM Grand.
MGM Grand, thank you.
Yes.
I just got back from Disney, so I'm kind of thinking that way. So, yeah, anything in particular we need to highlight out here? I know that the speaker announcements will be made very soon. I believe they're finalizing the selection of speakers. So I would expect that to start showing up over the next few weeks. But anything else we should highlight? I know, Ryan, you were probably at the meeting yesterday, or
yeah,
I think I saw...
you covered some pretty good bases. I was going to say exactly the same, that the call for speakers has closed, and they now have a good setting for the amount of speakers that we need to cover the spots that we want to have for the days of the convention. Those are being organized and structured right now so that we have introduction level courses and sessions happening right next to developer level sessions. The things that you could do now is start to look at and decide whether you want to register and whether you want to plan to come. One easy thing to do is that you could go ahead and register now. That obviously doesn't have anything to do with hotel or travel or anything. That's your registration for the event, regardless if you feel comfortable to come in person and be in Las Vegas with us. Additionally, I know that Las Vegas is making it easy to travel, and they are aware and understand that things may change over the next 2 or 3 months, and you might be on one side of the fence and then on the other side of the fence shortly afterwards. So do know that most of the hotel and airfare bookings are ones where with travel insurance and other things in place, you can change your plans as you need to. But either way, the conference registration is a safe bet. That's the registration you'd be using to get on to Hopin, regardless of whether you're doing so at home in your pajamas and your favorite socks, or you're doing so in Las Vegas, where we'll be doing, like David said, evening events and some activities where we can socialize and get together. But at the time of a session, we're all going to be going back up to hotel rooms, plugging in on our laptops, and joining online just as everyone else is joining. So I'd encourage everyone to start thinking about buying those tickets. And since you're in the sponsor section, might be a good idea to mention that there are still sponsorship positions open and available. So if you are interested in supporting the DNN Summit conference and the DNN community in general, helping make these things happen, it's important. It's something that we need, and we try our best to make shout outs to those sponsors and tell them thank you. Many times it's the same people you see regularly supporting these types of conventions, but you can be in there too. It absolutely can be your company, your single one-man shop, or your 10-person company can be in there at any level for sponsorship. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, be sure to be involved in one way or another, whether it's participating and joining the event as a participant or sponsoring or both. And do that as early as possible, because I know the organizers certainly appreciate knowing kind of what the attendance is going to be like and things like that, so they can plan accordingly for that. And it does help especially from a financial standpoint, to know that people are committed to attending. And so, yeah, looking forward to another great DNN Summit coming up in February. So we did a good job, got through that in the first 20 minutes here. So we'll get ready to change gears here and introduce our first speaker here. Timo is joining us all the way from Netherlands. So welcome, Timo. Really appreciate you joining. Timo is a board member of the DNN Connect Association that's on the DNN Connect events over in Europe, as well as with 40 fingers. I was going to just about said 40 pound, but with 40 fingers. And there's a story behind that. Maybe you'll have a little bit of that too in your introduction there, and I won't steal your thunder. So welcome, Timo. Big round of applause for everybody, and we'll hear from Jay Mathis after Timo.
Yes. Okay. So I'll give you a short introduction for the people that don't know me, but I'm guessing most of you do. I'm Timo Breumelhof from the Netherlands. I've been working with DNN since 2006, DNN 331, I think. After a few years, I did some projects with 3 other guys, and then we decided to start an association which functions like a company in the Netherlands, which is 40 Fingers. And we are a full service web solutions company, and 90% of what we do is based on DNN. Everybody has their specialty within 40 Fingers, and my side is more design, creating themes and open content templates and some other stuff. Is there a question? No. I've been quite active for the community since 2006, as Dave mentioned. DNN Connect. I've been doing some stuff for DNN community too. We created a style helper, which a lot of people probably know, which is a component which allows you to manipulate the style sheets and JavaScript and other stuff that your skin loads. And I've been doing I haven't been doing much advertisement for that, but I've been doing some example themes too. And today I'm going to talk a bit about OpenContent, because we use OpenContent a lot. Mainly because it's structured content, and structured content makes managing websites much easier for clients. By the way, if you have any questions or remarks, please let me know. And what I would like to do is to show you some use cases of how we use OpenContent. I'm not going to explain how that all works exactly in OpenContent, because there's no time for that, I think. But it's more of some examples of how we do stuff with OpenContent, and how you can, how far you could take it if you want to. Maybe I'll also explain why we're using OpenContent mainly. So it's mainly because you're using structured content, which is way better than using the HTML module. One of the nice things about OpenContent, at least that's one of the things that I really like it, is that that it's actually all text. Everything's text in a way. Even the data is stored as JSON, so as text in the database. So that makes it all very easy to manipulate. It's very flexible. Sasha Trouan, who is the developer, is very open to suggestions. We have a meeting with them every 2 or 3 weeks, and we've been sponsoring changes, and we've been adding changes, etc. And one of the other really cool features is that you can include the theme, the templates, because OpenContent uses templates, inside your theme. So if I install a new theme for a client, it just installs all the updated templates for OpenContent with it. I don't have to separately install them. Okay. Am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. Okay, I'll show you some examples. Let me see. I'm not sure whether I'm not sure whether you're able to hear my browser sound.
We don't see your screen, I don't think, unless I am messing up here, but feel free to share your screen. Oh, now I do. Now I do. Thanks.
Oh, you don't hear the sound, do you? No.
No, I think there is a setting where you can do that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. Normally you hear a sound here, and this is my first example of a very simple OpenContent template. So what you see here is actually a DNN website with an OpenContent template. And as soon as I switch to edit mode, I'll get out of full screen. Oh, okay. For the people that don't really know OpenContent, there's an edit side to OpenContent, so that's the structured part of OpenContent. If you go into edit mode here, you will see some fields that I can enter. So I can enter an intro text here. I can upload a video and audio, and I can set a logo for the top left corner. The video or the audio you probably didn't hear, but no, I heard some audio. And there are some texts that you can change, and that way you can manipulate in a way this slide. And I sometimes use it as an introduction when I do demos for people. So this is just very simple. And the cool thing about let me see. What I said before is that this is the folder structure. So this is the skin I'm using, and there's just an OpenContent folder in there with a templates folder. And then here this is the template that you see here. So there is a data definition and a template and some CSS. And that's it in a way. Well, you do need to know what you're doing, but in a way you can create almost anything you want using this method. Okay, so I already said this. Oh, by the way, I would like to to advertise the forums on dnncommunity.org, which is a really great way to ask questions, because those are indexed, and I've been quite active on them to answer posts and to change some of the templates, etc. And one other thing I was just forgetting is that what I just mentioned is that this is our demo website. This is the if you would have any questions about OpenContent in general, the best starting point would be the readme.io help site, which explains you a lot about how OpenContent works. And that's the best starting point. Now, okay, then obviously there's GitHub, and OpenContent kind of comes with some templates which are already predefined, and those are listed on openextensions.net. And the last thing is that you can also, that's on our demo website, you can also find some demo OpenContent templates. I don't know why it's so slow. So for instance, there are a lot of options to configure the CK editor in OpenContent. You can manipulate the way it's being, what buttons are shown, etc., etc. So as soon as I switch to edit mode here, this is quite useless. But when I go to edit here, you will see that this is the default editor. This is the basic default full with extra allowed HTML, with an extra style set. You can change the editor size. You can add custom toolbars. You can add custom text formats. You can load extra plugins, and this is just attached. So that's, I'm always trying when people ask questions about how they should do stuff in OpenContent, and it is template related. I always try to add that to. It's not complete, but I try to add that to this example site, so people can just download the example and steal it. Then back to the stuff that we do with OpenContent. So this is one of the nicer examples of what we've been doing with OpenContent. So the nice thing is that this is an OpenContent module where the client can manage a slider, add an image, add some text, and all the other stuff is rendered automatically. Or these kind of blocks which they reuse all over the website. This is just a template, and the advantage of structured content is that if you reuse this on another page and at some point in time they want this to be blue, for instance, then we'll just change the CSS on the background, and all the buttons over the website on the whole website would turn blue. Same for this kind of stuff. It's just a very nice way of making content editing easier for clients without them having to worry about the layout. So that's also very different from stuff that, for instance, Vajero does. We use it in such a way that the client doesn't really have to think about the design, and they can't even change the design, because that's, you know, we don't even want them to touch on the corporate identity. Okay, then back to the use cases. We had one client which was on Ventrian news articles. They had been on property agent before. We converted them from property agents to news articles. But now they wanted some, first of all, they wanted a new design. So we created a new design for them. And the other thing is that they wanted things that weren't really doable with, well, in principle, you can do anything with news articles if you want to, but the thing is that they needed a lot of custom fields, and the news articles custom fields are always at the bottom, while in OpenContent you can put them anywhere you want. So we decided to convert their website from news articles to OpenContent. And what the problem here was that they have 16,000 articles. So it's not it was not really an option to do any manual work on that. Apart from the new design, we as I said, we converted those, and you can I'll switch into edit mode. So the really nice thing is that in this case we can, you know, I could just make these fields in any order I wanted to, and it makes editing for them way easier. And they have a lot of options now. They can set whether they want the image at the top or the image at the right. They can change. I didn't see a direct example for it right now, but here you see an image at the top, but you can also add a slider here, or so they have a lot of options now. But as I said before, the problem was moving the old content to the new content. So what we did, we have module which has been for internal use, which is our what we call the mass manipulate module. And in a way, this consists of a list of pluggable Razer files. And by the way, this module isn't public yet, but we are going to open source this. It's on GitHub already, but there's no release yet. So it has some options like generate tabs, which isn't really needed anymore nowadays, but you can also copy page permissions from one page to the other. So every time we need something for a client, which requires more than a bit of scripting, we add a tab in here. The other thing is the regex replace in SQL, like we've used it a lot for when sites went from HTTP to HTTPS, that kind of stuff. But there's all generate roles, remove roles, all kind of stuff. But there's also news articles to OpenContent. And the nice thing about this is that you can create a configuration and then you can copy the configuration to a live website. Or you can create a new one. So you can see here that the configuration is in JSON. And you need to enter the portal ID, the module ID. It's all a bit rough still, but I mean, it's working for internal purposes. You can add an extra where clause for the amount, for the number of, to select the articles you want to convert. There are some queries for additional data in news articles, and then at the bottom you can add mapping. So the old news articles article.article ID is going to NAID, which is going to be important at a later stage. You copy the news articles title, etc., 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 and this way we manage to convert all the data from news articles to OpenContent. By the way, I think this script ran for 3 hours to convert the 16,000 articles. And it was a lot of work to create this. So just to be sure, just to explain this, we are not going to open source this because we need it for more clients, and we decided to spend extra time on it, and we're selling it to our clients now. When that's done, we are also going to stop supporting the news articles module because we have been keeping it alive mainly for this client and 1 or 2 other clients. But we are not convinced that, well, we are convinced that we can do anything we want now with OpenContent, also because we sponsored the option to be able to add comments, which was not in OpenContent before, and it is now. So you can now add a response, and OpenContent, well, you can show a list of responses, and I need to go to the Dutch part of this website. And then there is like comment moderation, which is also an OpenContent template, and you can approve or unapprove comments. The nice thing about this compared to news articles is that it's all super flexible. So you need to do a lot of stuff to get this to work, but it's super flexible. So you could do a lot of other stuff with this than just comments. So it's like an implementation of an inline form, which looks like comments, but you could do anything with it essentially if you wanted to. Well, when we had done this, we had one more problem, which was the old URLs for the articles, because obviously the articles had a URL, and they now had a new URL. And as some of you might know, we have an SEO redirect module, which allows you to create a list of redirects that you place on the 404 page. And then when something comes in, you can redirect them to another URL. But we didn't really feel like adding 16,000 records to that module. So we actually took well, we fixed this also with OpenContent, because normally this page already existed, and then there in the URL for the articles there was article type, article view, and then it showed you the ID of the news articles article. And so what we did, we placed an OpenContent module on this page. And as you can also create Razer templates, what we just did is we have a Razer template on this page which does a database query. It reads the old ID from the query string, does a database query on the article with the old ID, and then it can generate the new URL, and it just redirects you. So the advantage of this is that in the beginning, there will be a lot of traffic on this page, but as Google will start to understand that the page is, or that the article is located elsewhere, there's going to be less and less traffic on this page. So it will, in the end, have barely any performance impact anymore. And probably in a year, we'll delete this page, and then that's done. Well, that was, I think, about it about this page. About this project. Are there any questions? I'm seeing stuff in the chat.
Yeah, so with OpenContent, I see you can do handlebars, but you mentioned Razer. Are
Yes,
there
you can
any
do both.
other templating kind of approaches, or is it just those two, or what?
It's handlebars and Razer.
Okay.
So, and handlebars is useful. Well, handlebars is a lot faster in a sense that if it's a simple template, it protects you against null reference exceptions and that kind of stuff, which you have to take into account in Razer, and handlebars just handles that. So if you're doing a quick template, which is really simple, handlebars is really fast because it's just, yeah. But as soon as it gets more complex, you don't have although you can extend handlebars by creating helpers, it is not, you don't have all the possibilities that you have in Razer, obviously. And by the way, what is something I should explain too, I guess, because here you see like a list with filters, and this list is kind of generated with web API calls. So this is not a Razer template, and that's the nice thing about handlebars. You can use handlebars to create client-side templates if you want, which are being rendered by calling an AJAX call in a way. And that's why it's possible to create this list with while there are 16,000 plus articles in this in the database in a way, because OpenContent uses its own Lucene index for speed. If you would try this with a Razer template, then it wouldn't work with 16,000 articles. That's just well, that's gonna be really slow. So well, that's the other nice thing about handlebars, that it offers you a quite simple introduction into creating client-side AJAX call templates, and that's nice. Did I miss any other questions?
I
Yeah,
believe
lazy. Yeah. So this is lazy loading in a way. Sorry.
I believe OpenContent uses Bootstrap 3, and I looked at moving it to 4. And of course, now there's 5. Do you see any issues moving to a more recent version of Bootstrap?
No, because I use Bootstrap 4 mostly.
Oh, okay.
And in the settings of OpenContent, you can say whether it should use Bootstrap or not.
Okay, so it's not tied very closely to it.
No,
That's great.
well, so what it does, it loads. So I can show you here in the global settings. You can select what kind of edit form you want. You can even choose DNN if you want to. And here I can select whether it should load Bootstrap in the edit form, which is, by the way, the only reason for it to load Bootstrap. And this is one that you need to select if you would have Bootstrap 4 on your in your theme, because as a backup for the glyphicons, otherwise you wouldn't see any icons. But these are the things. These are some of the things that we sponsored because we needed them for it to work with Bootstrap 4. And this is something that you need to set for a portal once, and then it's kind of done.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have maybe just sort of a general question.
Yes.
I'm just curious because the only module I use is for structured content is too sexy content, and I'm just wondering because that was the first one I was introduced to, and then I used it. I'm just wondering what would be what are the highlight sort of features of OpenContent that would be different than too sexy content? Like in your mind, what are the advantages, I guess, or what are the big features that are the most exciting for you?
Well, I think for most use cases, they are like you could say that they are like competitors. You know, it's maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean. For me, what I really like about OpenContent is that it offers it offers a lower learning curve at the start, in my opinion. That's one thing. And the fact that I said before, everything's text, so that's something that I like about it too. And it is what should I say? In a way, I tried both, and in my opinion, Too Sexy was more complex at the time. But I think that's like, how should I say, that's might be 6 years ago or even more. And at the time, I think OpenContent had less options and possibilities than Too Sexy, but it has grown a lot. And to be honest, there is not much that I haven't been able to do when I wanted it to. And I don't know. I'm guessing that I could have probably done it with Too Sexy too. And that wasn't there at the time yet. But one of the reasons for me, I'm not logged in now, but one of the reasons for me not to use OpenContent is the fact that you see these buttons in view all the time. Or sorry, not to use Too Sexy at the moment would be that the fact that you see these edit buttons in view all the time, because I know that some people, especially Daniel, don't like edit mode, but I want to see a design without any interference, and that's not possible. It's something that came on later, but for me that would be a personal reason not to use Too Sexy. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I was just kind of wondering, yeah, like in general, more than just like personal preferences, but I was just wondering if there was a hit feature or something like that. But yeah, that more or less answered my question.
No, I think they both have kind of the same hit features, is that you're using structured content and yeah. And and the fact that they're both really flexible and that you can use them in many ways, and the fact that that a user sees kind of a similar edit interface for all the different kinds of parts of your website. But I'm guessing that everything I'm doing with OpenContent now, I could probably also have done with Too Sexy, but well, it's more personal preference.
Could you
Okay.
also show some of the, I am curious about some of the edit screens. Like, could you show me some more of those? I don't know if we have time, but I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, I will show you some more edit screens. By the way, at the moment, the edit screens are just using Bootstrap 3 or Bootstrap, well, Bootstrap edit screens. And one of the things that that relates to the previous question is that Sasha has been using Alpaca, which is a JavaScript form engine, and that has never been updated to Bootstrap 4, which is a bit of a problem, although it functions. But Sasha is currently working on changing the edit screens to Vue.js, so that will give you a lot of extra options. And to be honest, in some cases, I've added some custom styling to overrule some edit screens too. But I'll show in my next example. Yeah, did I pronounce Vue.js incorrectly, Jeremy? Okay. In my next example, I'll show some edit screens too. Okay, so my next example actually connects to what David just explained about DNN docs. I don't know whether people know that, but the DNN skin objects, there have been some websites which show you options. Tampon Gorilla has one now, and before there was one. What was his name? This Greek guy, forgot. But a long time ago, and you can still find it if you Google DNN's theme objects. There's an appendix B, which I once created in 2009. Well, this is, well, it's the old styling, but this was, I once spent a lot of time on this, and it would be really good to add this to DNN docs together with yes, that was what I was saying, from Alpaca to Vue.js. Yeah, it's just a few years ago, Will. But it would be really great if this kind of information would be part of the DNN docs. And but to be honest, I'm all fine with the way this works. But the problem that I had with it was twofold. One of it was that adding this content is okay, but to be honest, I really hate tables and Markdown. That was the first thing. So I tried one, and then I thought, okay, this is not going to work for me. The other thing is that what I really like to do, as I do with most things, is create a demo theme for options for this. So what I did is I have created, as OpenContent is Razer, I have created a structured content template in OpenContent, and did I say mark up? Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, mark down. So you see this page, and when I go into edit here, and there you will see an edit screen, by the way. This is yes. So you'll see that I can enter a name, a version, an introduction. I can add some notes. I can add an ASCX include. I still need to remove this one. An HTML token, an object token, all the attributes that are possible. And then I can add some examples. And as soon as I save that, as this is a Razer template, and as long as I'm in, where's my example? Where's my folder? So you can see here that in here there are some skins, and what the template does. I'm on breadcrumb. I'll just delete this one. Now you see there's no 0, 1 anymore. When I press F5, it's going to complain about the fact that the skin doesn't exist, but I have to press. Oh wait, sorry. If I delete it, I need. Oh, there's still. This is not for live demoing. I need to restart the server because DNN doesn't know that the file has been recreated, etc., etc. But you can at least see that. And now you can see that here in my folder that has created, that's all automated based on this skin theme. It copied that. This has a token in it, placeholder. The placeholder is being replaced by an automatically generated part of the theme, which is this. These are the examples. So it renders out the examples. Here you can see what is being introduced and what it will look like. And the other thing that this theme does, it generates the markdown here. So now I can copy this markdown, go to the correct folder, copy this into the readme.md file and commit it to GitHub. And this makes it all way, way, way easier for me to add some examples or make some minor changes. It did take me a lot of time before I got it to work, but it's just it's just good to have it, having it in a structured content. Same content will be on our demo website, and you can see some examples, and people can download the demo skins with the examples in it. So you can see here that there are some examples. So this is the example. This is one example. This is the other one, etc., etc. So that's just something that I thought would be really useful for myself and for the community. And although I spend a lot of time on getting this to work, it now makes it way easier for me to once in a while do a few and do some commits. And I hope that in the near future we will have all theme objects.
Hey, Timo, I got a quick question.
listed here.
You had mentioned the demo site that you have there, but I noticed this on your local machine. Is that accessible for the public anywhere or no? Demo.40fingers.net. We'll try to add that to the notes.
So there it is.
Awesome.
And it has, well, I have to admit that some of these portals are not, how should I say, not very current anymore. Well, most of the stuff is still working. So there's some stuff in here. For instance, we once created something where you can relate one page to the other, but we never open sourced it. But I mean, if people want to, we could. And this is one of the other examples, which I think is important to the community. At least I hope that people know about this, which is a lot of Ddr menu examples. I'm using this all the time. This actually started when I was constantly looking for examples, and now every time somebody asks a question in the forum and it's interesting, I put it as an example on this in this theme. So this theme can be found on GitHub and on our website too. So there are, I don't know, you can menus alphabetically in Razer, using the node selector, which is like, so this is the full menu, and then here you see your root and level shows you this menu 1 in the current breadcrumb, etc., etc., etc. I'm guessing that this is the most used example because you can do anything with the node selector in Ddr menu, but it's, well, after a week, I always forget what to do, to be honest. It's complicated. Yeah.
What's the relationship with openextensions.net? Sasha's older site, is that just built on top of OpenContent as sort of some examples, or is there something
Yes,
more complex?
at the moment it only serves mainly for as an example website. So that is let me see, that's the other word. So he once started this as the home page, or sorry, as the home for OpenContent and OpenForm. But the main purpose of it now is to show people some examples of the templates that are coming with OpenContent. By the way, I think that's a difference with Too Sexy. You should not see these as ready templates. Some of them can be used, well, most of them can be used, but OpenContent is more for creating your own templates. You should see them more as example. Although these articles ones you could use, but so what I showed you here is in a way based on this, but with a lot of extra styling.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, there's one interesting thing coming in the new version of OpenForm, which was something that wasn't possible before, is that in the new version, an administrator can also change forms, and before you couldn't. Well, okay. Any other questions?
Timo, really appreciate you presenting here today. Do we, as we're wrapping up this segment, do we have any more questions for Timo before we switch gears? Really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through some of this. I know this is some really cool stuff. 16,000 articles converted. That'll stick in my mind for sure. Good job.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So let's see here. So we also have with us today Jay Mathis. Many of you know him from the community, been community member for quite some time as well. And he'll be presenting a bit on another structured content possibility potentially in the future here. I'm really excited to see what he has to show today. So Jay, thanks for joining us, and I will not steal any of your thunder.
Thank you, David. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. Everybody see that? To tell you a little bit about myself, I've been using DNN since it was like the February after Sean released it. So, was that 2002? Coming up on almost. And about a year after it was released, I kind of turned this into my full-time job. So I've been doing DNN now since the very beginning, practically. I am on a couple of DNN advisory groups, the awareness group, the developer group, and try to contribute wherever I can, whenever I have time. Seems to be getting harder with kids, but never enough time in the day. Anyway, so a couple of years ago, it'd been a lot of talk about, hey, we really needed a structured content system within, built into DNN, something that ships with the platform. And I tried using a couple of the various options, OpenContent and Too Sexy and some of the other ones. And they all do what they do well. but it just never really felt quite right to me. So I set about coming up with a solution that I thought, if I could solve 80% of the use cases, maybe that would be a good inclusion, and I would just donate it back to the core, and it could be extended by other people to add new functionality as it was needed. And so I started down the path of kind of looking at, I wanted to build this from an architecture perspective the right way, and looking at performance and different metrics that way, so that whatever we were building on top of it from a UX layer wouldn't be hampered by the architecture layer, the database, and that type of stuff. So I settled on a model here, and kind of where I'm going with this is do you build the discrete tables for the objects that you're building, or do you kind of try and cram everything into these skinny tables like an EAV model, where if you're familiar with like DNN's user profile table, you've got all these tables that kind of describe the data, then you've got another table that actually holds the data. In order to get, to actually construct a profile record, you have to do like 20 joins. And it's really hard if you're trying to write SQL to do that, or import data or export data or do a report on that kind of table. It's just really, really tough. And so settled on the model that we were going to build discrete tables to hold the data rather than an EAV model. And I'll show you the system that I've created here, handles all that for you. And so let's just kind of dive into it. So what you're seeing here, this is just a blank website with David's NB Quick theme on here. I haven't updated this to the latest version. I think this is using Bootstrap 4. So right off the bat, you'll see that I've added a persona bar menu to the content section. It always kind of bothered me that we have this content group and there's only two things in here, pages and recycle bins. Like, where's the actual content in the content menu? So I put it there. And so you come into the content menu. Now again, I'm starting from scratch here, so this demo may go horribly awry. We'll see how this goes. All right, so let's start off here, and I'm going to create a new content type. And what you'll see is there you get the option here of just deciding you want. We'll just create some stuff here on the fly. Authors, and it's going to suggest what's the plural version of that. This is a singular version. This is going to be the URL slug to actually access your data. And then behind the scenes, it's going to create a table called authors, and it's going to be prepended with something ZZ right now, but this could, this is just a setting. This could be in the web config or whatever. This could be whatever you want. And we're prepending this value on here basically to avoid name collision with any tables that might already be in the database. So maybe it makes sense to make this DNN structured content or something, some kind of intelligent value to prepend to all these table names. And I'll show you exactly how this is looking in SQL Server in a second. I'm sorry. Seeing stuff in chat here. Okay, yeah. The goal was, Aaron, is eventually is to donate this to the core, and if it's worthy to be part of the distribution. But yeah, this is really just a proof of concept, and want to see what's missing, what functionality you need, how are people using it, that kind of stuff. So okay. Okay, so I'm gonna hit create here. And immediately you're going to get a designer here. This is kind of a table designer. And so by default, it tells you here's the content name that you've created is called authors. Every record within the table has to have a name. And that's just so that you can query stuff by name and search for it. So regardless of what type of object, it's got to have a name field. That's required. You can't delete that field. But then you can just drag and drop these different types of data onto the table, onto the canvas here, and start building your table. Real quick, the advanced tab here is just the stuff that we were already looking at. This is just so you can change the plural version, singular version, stuff like that. So let's go back to the designer. I'm going to drag some stuff onto the canvas. We'll call this first name. And so you can provide help text here. It's going to give you a preview of what the field will look like when it's on the data collection screen. So let's say enter the first name. You can control the database schema. So behind the scenes, it's going to create a column called first underscore name. It'll use whatever data type you want. It'll default to what kind of makes sense. So text box will default to an nvar, but you may want to increase the data length. You can set whether or not the field is allowed to be null in the database. You can set a default value. If you set this that it can't be null, then you have to provide a default value. But if you say it can't be null, then the default value is not required. And then on the content type options box, you can say whether this field is required. You can, for text box, and each one of the options on the left have different options available here, but you could specify it has to be between 1 and 10 characters, for example. And then you could test the validation and say, okay, if you submitted it just like this, it would come back as an error. So let's put in some information here. It'll say, okay, you went past the 10. So you can kind of test the validation, make sure it's right. Let's say I don't want to make this required. So we'll hit create. Drag another text box on here. Put this one here. Last name. Create. Let's do I don't know, email address. Create. And you got all these different options here. So I mean, there's a website. These all have validation on here. Like the email address will validate to make sure it's an actual email address. The number field will validate that it's an actual number. The text area, the rich text editor is not implemented yet. I got to implement that one. But you could do a date time field. You can do checkboxes, checkbox list. You could do basically all this stuff. And I'm going to come back to related content in just a second. This is kind of what makes it really neat, I think. So let's save this. You can obviously put a lot more stuff on about the author, but let's just do first name, last name, and email address. And then we'll create another one called books. Leave that one. And let's just put a number field on here and say number of pages. Okay, create. All right, so we'll save those. Now let's relate these two things to each other. So if I go back into the authors, oops, data entry. Let's go back into the settings for authors. And I'm going to drag the related content type down here. Put that right there. And you'll get this relationship builder interface that says, okay, you want to relate authors to books. So it's a one-to-many, and it tells you kind of how it's going to build this. So one author is related to multiple books. Obviously, I guess you could have multiple authors on books, like I guess it's possible. But for most of the time, it'd be one author can write multiple books, right? You could actually put limits on this to say, hey, we only want to have a maximum of 5 books, or you have to have at least 3 books, but at most 5. I mean, you could do that kind of stuff, and it'll validate all that stuff for you as well. So let's just leave it open-ended and hit create. So behind the scenes, I'm going to show you what it's actually doing here. If I go up and refresh my table list, you'll see that it has created 2 tables here, authors and books. And if I look at the columns, okay, it's got an ID field, which it needs. The name field is required. The status is going to be whether it's published or not, this kind of workflow stuff. And then it's got some audit fields, like when was it created, the date was modified, the date was published. Then you get to the stuff that I've actually added to these tables, the first name, last name, and email address. Okay. And then on the books field, it was smart enough to know that because this is a one-to-many relationship, did the same, these are the same types of fields. There's the field that I added, the number of pages, and it was smart enough to add that referential integrity field to this. So now at the database level, we're actually creating tables. The data model is rock solid. So, if I were to delete an author, all of his books would go with it because there's referential integrity. Or you can change whether or not that's enforced or not, but you could enforce the referential integrity. So if you delete an author, all the books go with it. So you don't have these orphaned records out there because it was smart enough to know that this is a one-to-many relationship, and all you need to do is add a foreign key to the books table. I'm going to show you a many-to-many relationship in just a second. So I've only added the books collection to the author's user interface, but again, it's smart enough to know that if I go back to the books, I need an author here. Now that's going to be a drop-down list because it's going to look different, right? So let's start adding some data in here. So I'll go to authors and we'll add a new author. Now, again, you'll notice there's some functionality here that hasn't been implemented, like export, import. The settings will take you back to the designer here, but let's just add a new author, and we'll say Ernest Hemingway. First name is Ernest, last name is Hemingway. Email address, he probably didn't have one, so let's just give him a fake one. I haven't put any books in here yet, so I'm gonna just save his record. And then I'm gonna go back to books. Let's add some of his books in here. What are his books? I forgot. Sun Also Rises. And that said had, I don't know, 100 pages. The author was Ernest Hemingway. And I may have broken it. Yeah, I did. Shoot. Okay. I've been playing with this all morning, so it's quite possible I broke some stuff. Let's add another book. Let's add For Whom the Bell Tolls, 200. Save this without an author. It's not going to work either. Shoot.
Is it because it was a kind of a draft and not published, or no?
No, I was messing with the relationship stuff earlier this morning, and I'm sure I broke something. Let's go back this way. Maybe it'll let me do it this way. All right, so if I'm on the authors table, and because this is a one-to-many relationship, you can do this. So I'm just going to search the books, and I see it added it twice because I clicked it twice. But let's do it that, and let's search again and do this. Okay, we'll save that. And that doesn't seem to be working either. All right, well, shoot, I think I broke something, and I apologize for that. But you get the idea of how that's supposed to work. You'll be able to just add related items here by doing a search for the the related data, related content type, and just add it directly there. I'm also going to add a button here that you can, rather than searching existing ones, you'll be able to just create a new record on the fly, so you don't have to switch back and forth between the content types. I'm going to delete one of these because I got an extra one. And that's not working either. All right, so there's still some bugs in here. Interesting that worked. Okay, so let's also do. I'm going to set up another table here. Let's do. I'll show you a many-to-many relationship. So let's do students, and let's add some kind of field here. First name. Oh boy, what's going on now? Okay, I'm not exactly sure why that didn't work. That should have worked at least.
Hey, you need to take a cue from like Mandeep did the other day in one of his presentations.
Backup.
He had a backup ready to go, man.
I actually just had it and I deleted it. I was like, oh, this is working. I'll just build this on the fly. That was dumb. Let me see see what it's doing here.
It always breaks during live demos, always.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can do it without adding any custom fields to it. Let's see if this will work. All right, so we'll add classes. And then if I go back to students and I add a related content, students can be a many-to-many relationship to classes. Okay, multiple students are in multiple classes, right? So one student can have multiple classes, one class can have multiple students. All right, let's see if that works. All right, so that works. So let's look at the database side and make sure that it did what I wanted it to do. So if I go back and refresh the tables, so you'll now see there's a classes table, a students table, and then basically a relation table that just is a cross-reference table. There's nothing in it other than foreign keys to those two primary key tables. So that's, basically it's building this data framework for you. And the nice thing that I really like about this is that, hey, if the structured content module that we're building you want to do some kind of functionality that's just beyond what it's capable of doing, no problem. You've got your data layer right here that is the database level is fine. You can just build your own custom module right on top of this and take over if it doesn't do what you need it to do. Try to do that in an EAV model, good luck. The other thing that I want to show you here is that the entire thing is API driven. So for example, I showed you back on here when you go look at the authors. If I go to the settings here, you'll see that you may have missed this, but the API endpoint for this is API content authors. Okay, so if I open up Postman and I go to API content authors and just hit enter, you get your data back in JSON format. So this is kind of the start of a headless CMS, right? You can build all of your data content within DNN, manage it there, but it can be accessible to anything. Now you'll notice that I don't have any kind of authorization or authentication on lists yet, but there's another layer that needs to go in here where you need to be able to log in and actually realize that you have permissions to do this kind of stuff. But all these methods that you see over here on the left, the entire thing, this is how you would add content types, add fields to those content types. Everything is here to manage your data in a web API layer. So it really is the start of a headless CMS, and so any type of application can access this data.
Very interesting. So Jay, you're saying that the management screen, the UI there is allowing you to create normalized database tables, but then for the structured content module, it's reading in by API. So it's doing all of its data consumption, you said there, in JSON format for what gets returned back. It's not doing SQL connection strings to get connected to get data.
Nope. And if I do a /1, like now I'm going to get a specific author, and I broke the relationship thing earlier, but normally it would return back all of the related objects here. So it would have returned back a collection of books. You'd see that if I hadn't broke the front end of that, it would have shown you books are related. Well, here, I can do this. I can manipulate the data in the back end. Let's just do it this way. We'll put in, get rid of that duplicate, put in 1 and 1. Now, if I hit this web API, now you're going to get back the collection of books along with the author information. And so now it's just a matter of consuming this data in whatever format you want. So let's put in a visualizer. I stole that term from Liquid Content. So we'll create a visualizer.
You stole it from Liquid.
Yeah. We'll do a list of authors. Editor. I've got templates in here, or I've got placeholders in here for either Liquid or Razer, but I mean, really you could plug in whatever templating engine you wanted to use. I mean, if you wanted to use Angular or whatever, it just needs to be able to plug in, an engine for that. I've got the Liquid in here working, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to copy some code here. Okay, so for each author in the list of items that comes back, I'm going to display the first name, last name, and there's going to be multiple ones that come back. You could also attach JavaScript to this. You could attach CSS if you wanted to. Those will get injected into the module as well. The auto generate doesn't do anything yet, but basically what this would do is read your database table and put out some boilerplate code for you to kind of get you started if you wanted to. So let's hit save. Let's create another one for single. Spell it right. And for this one, I'm just going to display his name, just make it simple. Okay. Okay. So now you also have you don't have to come up here to this menu to get to the content library. You can do it directly from on page. So once you add the module to the page, you'll get these two links here. You can either manage the visualizer settings, which is you're basically instancing the data on the page. So for here, I'm going to say, okay, I want to display authors, and I'm going to do a list of authors with no filter. Let's just put it on the page. I've only got one author in here. Let's add another author so you can see what that looks like. Content library, authors. Give it a name. So once I did that, now if I refresh it, I should get two. But if I wanted to say, you know what, I only want to display a single author here. I want to do the template. I'm going to do a single author. Visualize using the template I set up, and I'm going to select a specific one. So that's broken too. Okay, well that's how it's supposed to work. But you'll notice on the filter tab, right now you're basically selecting a discrete author. What I plan to do is add more functionality here, so you could filter by query string or cookie or however you want to do it. That'll come. That's fairly simple to do. Basically build a where clause, that you can then pass into your SQL query, and it'll return just what you want. And then you can also get to the manage content directly. So you don't have to go back to the persona bar. You can just do it directly from here. That's kind of it, really, in a nutshell. Wish the relationship thing wasn't broken, or I'd show you how that was working too. I'll fix that, and we'll do another demo later. Any questions on what you've seen so far?
Hey, Jay, how would you handle like a nested relationships, like more than just one level? You did an example of like books related to authors. Yeah. Hey, DNN Diva, why don't you ask this question? I know you care about this.
Yeah, I do care about that. I was about to formulate the question here. And on regular, evoc liquid content, you just cannot have nested objects, which is hell on earth. I'm sorry, it is what it is. And so how are you yourself gonna deal with that? Because in other content managers, we don't have that issue.
Yeah, I do have, I wish I hadn't broken the relationships, or I'd be able to show you that. It does handle that already. So the nested, basically the code back here is smart enough that it's not going to loop back on itself. It's not going to crawl down the object tree and then accidentally crawl back up and just get stuck in an iterative loop. So it'll basically send down the data that you want it to send down. And there's actually a flag where you can say, verbose, I think it's called verbose or not. So if you have the verbose flag on, it'll send you basically the entire object tree. And if you have it off, then it'll just send you just the object that you're asking for.
That's one of the limitations of liquid content, right? Is that when you're in one visualizer, for a particular content type, you don't have access to that other content type in that context. Like you can get to it directly, but you can't get the relationship. So it makes it very difficult to build solutions, with those relationships.
Yeah, within liquid content, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can only do direct relationships. You cannot ping-pong in.
Right. And so that, kind of what I want to do is, at this point is I want to get feedback in terms of, what is missing in the current offerings that are out there that you guys want. I mean, if you're using liquid content, the nested objects, we can handle that already. I can't demo it for you just yet, but it'll handle that. You can basically, you can see in here how you can build these relationships between things, right? So you can build related books. I could create another content type and relate it to these things as well, and it would just all be, behind the scenes. It's just building these table structures, and so now it's just surfacing this data via the web API and consuming the data.
Okay. What happens when the customer walks in with a new schema or a modified schema? Is there some way to convert data, to add fields or to remove or change fields, or is that basically you're looking to do a SQL update?
Yeah, I mean, so like I've got this, like for now example, I've got this author table here that is sitting here. It's ready to go. I've already put data in here, right?
Right.
So I could come back here to the design for this and add another field. And so let's add birthday. Create. Okay, so behind the scenes, it should have added a birth date field. There it is, birthday. And if I go into the actual record, now if I go into the authors and I look at him, he's now got a birthday field that's blank, obviously, so I could pick a day. Today.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, and I get it save, and again, this relationship thing is broken. That's what's what that's doing that. But by the same token, you know, if I came in here and deleted a field, you know, if I came in here and said, hey, I want to get rid of email address, I don't need that information anymore. It'll ask you to confirm that by just typing the typing the name of the field again, because it's gonna, you know, you're gonna lose all the data. You do that. Now it's gone, and if I come in and refresh the table, you see that the email field now is now gone. So yeah, you can change the schema on the fly. Pretty easy to do.
Very powerful and very dangerous, huh?
Yeah.
Now, Jay, what's a good way for us to give you feedback and suggestions and help give you ideas that you're looking for?
So I need to get this out to a GitHub repository, and I'm going to ask David or Will or somebody to help me with that, or Daniel. And there's some build processes that I need some help with, and you know, just other ideas like the whole authentication layer, and that I could use some help with, you know, authenticating that the user is who they need to have permissions to do the various things that you saw in this, you know, this web APIs. You know, they need to be able to set up a whole permissions layer on top of this, that hey, these people have permissions to do different things, and
or even to see different things. Yeah.
We could even have permissions to individual records, right? Or content types.
Which is role-based permissions. David or Will, do you guys want to talk to the location? Because it sounds like there's already a spot waiting for you, Jay.
Yeah, he knows.
There is.
Jay
I
knows.
just I haven't put it out there yet. Like I've been working on changing this thing so fast that I didn't want to have to mess around with that, but I will get it out there. And yeah, like I said, I would like for people to play around with it and tell me what's missing, what you need.
I really love how the data structure is done right, because that really scales very well. I just see one concern here. Right now, a data model is global for the instance, right?
Yes, and I did think about that. I am going to add, I think, a portal ID, a portal field on each of these tables that will, again, just be a system table. So
Should
you'll
it be
have
the table name though?
a what?
Because the contact for portal 1 and for portal 2 might have a different data structure. Should it be part of how we build the portal, the table name, maybe?
Yeah, it should just have a portal
Yeah,
ID
you're right.
in
It should be
the column.
Yeah, it actually should be. That is, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So what I think I'll do here is, you know, it'll be like ZZ and then the portal number.
Yeah.
And then underscore, then the object name.
And then it's global for the portal, correct? That's
right.
That's how
Yeah, this data right now is global for the portal for the whole installation. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. I would just add the portal ID in the table name to scope it per portal in case the other guy has a different concept of what a contact is.
That's right.
But I love it. Yep. Good work.
Yeah. And then, you know, when you start going down this path, and like you could see even there being, you know, in your content library, there could be system type content types. Like, you know, you could have an images library, and that would have its own special UX. So that these other content types that you're building, you just have on your designer here, you'd have an image, and you drag that on there, and you select something from your image library that was a specific content type, or a documents or videos or whatever. And those would all be specific types of content types. And those, you know, you wouldn't be able to change those necessarily because they'd just be system types. But yeah, I mean, it's very extendable now, because then you're just dragging and dropping your designer. So that's kind of the long-term vision is.
Can I touch on something Daniel mentioned, putting the portal ID in the table?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should also consider the possibility of being able to use that content type across multiple portals. I mean, that's our use case. We have 70 portals that we share content types across. So, you know, I don't know if you put the portal ID in the table name, then is it possible to share that content across multiple tables, or is there some solution that lets you do both?
Could be both, maybe.
Yeah, one of the other comments in the chat was just to have portal ID and module ID inside of the table fields, and that's very common when we're building things.
Yeah. Yeah, let's think about that for a second. Yeah, I'm gonna think about what that would look like. But I was thinking about that earlier, where we need to have some kind of you know, scoping on this for portal. So.
And to put another wrench there, also something about localization.
Yeah, I do have a stub for that. I haven't gotten that far, but if you go into the author, that's what this button is supposed to be. So you'll be able to localize this record, right? So and I'm not exactly sure the best way to do that. I think I'm going to store that in the same table and just put like a language tag. So, you know, we'll have to.
Yeah, I guess you could have a language tag and a parent ID to associate it that goes with this one.
Yep.
Something along those lines, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this works or not. Oh, it does. Okay. So I got to fix the UX here, but this will actually show you, you know, who did what to it. So you could actually see, you know.
That's cool.
The revision history and stuff when people change data. What other stuff, I mean, do you want to normally see? You know, we were talking to Mitch the other day, and he had a couple of use cases of you know, basically building kind of widgets, if you would, where, you know, you're going to have like an image on the left and some text on the right, and maybe a button that, you know, a learn more button, and building these templates in a structured content way, so that basically your end user, who maybe not be very technically savvy, is just going to go in and say, I want this image, I want this text, and I want the button to point to here, and I want to, you know, pick this layout, and that's it, right? So I want to, whatever those use cases are, I'm going to kind of get a collection of those and make sure that it's doing those use cases really well, and then to go from there.
So, sorry, your audit log here was awesome. And when you went on to talk to something else like that was nothing. The chat is blowing up about the audit log. How are you handling that in the database tables? What are you doing there?
Yeah, in the database tables, let me go back and show you what that looks like. So that would be up here, structured content, revisions. So it's just stored in JSON format. So it's basically, it's just telling you, hey, this is what changed. You added this to this is what it was, and you added this.
That makes sense. And you have one for the whole system, and then it records some basic information. And if you needed to, you could go fetch more out of it if necessary. But otherwise, it's an audit log, or a blame log, as Jeremy called it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I haven't spent a whole lot of time on this, but I mean, I wanted to make sure that we were capable of capturing those revisions. And yeah, you could roll this back, because now I have all the data, and if I needed to, I could roll stuff back or see who did it.
Yeah, I'm thinking by default that should only store the most recent X number of changes, you know, 5 changes or whatever it is, and that being able to be controlled, because that could get really unruly for large sites, probably.
Yeah.
How is styling the template going to be handled?
So the template is whatever language your website is built in. I mean, all it's doing in these visualizers here, you know, when I look at this, it's just kicking out HTML. So it's going to use whatever you know your skin is using. There's no dependencies on anything. Now, if you're using Bootstrap, you could certainly put Bootstrap code in here, or if you're, whatever you're using, you could style it however you want, but it's totally up to you.
Okay, so yeah, so there's a editor where you can actually manipulate the code. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Does it have available template languages?
I do. So right now, like I don't have Razer implemented yet. I've only got Liquid implemented. It's using the .liquid engine to parse this. But you know, we can plug a Razer engine in here. You can plug whatever templating engine you want, and just use whatever language you want to use.
Awesome. Jay, one of the things I find really nice in Liquid Content is the ability to, there's some short shortcut key strokes that you can do to find out what is available in this context. So that might be nice, as far as like the syntax for your liquid and things like that. It also, when you create a new one, it'll go ahead and inject all the possibilities from the start so that you can use that as references while you're writing out your templates. So that might be something that would be cool.
Yeah. And I've been playing around. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on the visualizer side of the UX, other than just, proving that it works. But, I would like to make this almost like a drag and drop thing, just like the form designer is, it's like, hey, you want to, here's all the fields that are available in author, just drag it onto the canvas here and it'll put in the code for you. Or you could even do, I actually thought about, if you wanted to get opinionated about, your frameworks, I could scope a Bootstrap to this and say, okay, you can drag grids and columns and stuff onto the canvas here, and then just drag data elements into the columns. And you could actually scope a minified Bootstrap that would just have, the grid and various elements, into that little section of the website, so it's not affecting everything else. But I mean, you could make this as fancy as you want. So for right now, it's just going to kick out whatever HTML you put in here. But I mean, the whole visualizer editor experience could be a lot better than it is. Could be as fancy as you want to make it. I would like to get some help in implementing Monaco here, because this ACE editor is not great. Like, for example, it looks like my cursor right now is in between the T and the H, but if I press the backspace, it's actually deleted the A. So it's off. There's something wrong with it. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not crazy about this editor, but
I can certainly help with
but
that.
anyway, I mean, it's just little things like that. Not a big deal to switch out text editors.
And using Monaco, you also have language services. So if something is available for Razer or Liquid, bada bing, bada boom, what David talked about could be available.
Syntax.
Yeah.
Right.
Without too much work.
Yeah.
That would
exactly.
be great.
Yeah. I tried to implement it. I spent about 30 minutes on it. I couldn't figure it out. So I went back to this, but yeah, if I can get some help with that, that'd be great.
Jay, it's always a good sign when people start coming up with ideas after you present something. That's
yeah, I guess so.
It's always a good sign. If everybody's quiet, it either means it was so clear that nobody has any questions, or they didn't like it. So the fact that you're getting feedback here is a good sign. So great job presenting.
Yeah,
this.
I wasn't able to keep up on the chat, but is there any questions that I missed?
We pretty well got most of them.
Okay. All right.
I believe you had some extra pressure to get this up onto GitHub ASAP so that people can start to help participate.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And this has been kind of languishing on my to-do list for like 2 years now, because I got busy with other stuff. But I would like to, if there's enough interest in this and people think it's worthwhile, get this rolled out. And Mitch had even kind of teased about maybe including this in a future release of DNN 10, maybe as a reason to upgrade. But
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that has to happen before that happens. I mean, all the security stuff and the authentication and everything. So maybe a ways off, but that's where I'm headed.
Whether it's a standard standalone module or something that comes in with the core, it could be welcomed. I'll have a question for later, so don't run anywhere.
Okay.
Well, great.
Yeah, Jeremy, it really is. I mean, it really is. It's the designer is building a headless CMS. I mean, it's kind of what it is. It's building the tables for you. So everything is endpoint driven. So you can, like I said, you can use all these web API endpoints to basically build your data structures and go from there.
Well, Jay, thanks a lot for presenting, and really, really cool stuff. I know you've been sitting on this for a while. I think you started this a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I think
you built most of it then.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe how much time has passed.
Yeah.
It's a really
Yep.
good start, and I look forward to seeing it get out there. I'm happy to help you get it on to GitHub as soon as possible, because I think you probably have that indicator now of the interest. So, getting it out there will allow people to create, issues and share ideas that way, and we can help you manage the workflow of GitHub. So no problem there at all. I think
Great.
there's quite a few here that are interested in being involved in some shape, or form, or fashion with this. So
Great.
great job.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll draw a close to the recorded part of the session, but thanks everybody for joining the September Southern Fried DNN meetup, and we'll go ahead and stop the recording now, and have a great month.